예, 오랫동안 기다리셨습니다. 저는 이 사람을 만나기 위해서 만 4년을 꿈을 꿨습니다. 이분을 한국에 어떻게 하면 모실 수 있을까 하루하루 생각했고요. 그 꿈을 매일 꿨습니다. 한 번 강연료가 8억입니다. 하루 강의가. 그리고 세계를 움직이는, 미국을 움직이는 10일 안에 선정됐던 분입니다. 하지만 이분도 처음부터 그렇게 시작하진 않았습니다. 가난한 이민자의 아들로 태어났고요. 벌목공의 아들로서 학교 생활도 부진했고 고등학교 중퇴 학력으로 아무것도 할 수 있는 게 없었습니다. 그러던 어느 날 잘 곳이 없어 자동차에 잠을 자다가 너무 추워 깬 겁니다. 그때 죽음보다 더한 공포를 느꼈다고 합니다. 내가 왜 이렇게 살아야 하는지. 그리고 달라지기로 결심하기로 했고요. 그 굴레를 벗어나기 위해서 아프리카를 횡단했습니다. 그리고 슈바이처 박사를 만나고 삶에 성공의 어떤 원칙이 있다는 걸 깨닫게 됐습니다. 그리고 지금 그 성공의 원칙과 메시지들을 전해주고 있는 분입니다. 2003 브라이언 트리 성취입 세미나의 메인 주인공이고요. 제 역할 모델이기도 합니다. 다 함께 브라이언 트리 씨를 큰 소리로 외쳐보겠습니다. 브라이언 트리 씨를 소개하겠습니다.
안녕하십니까? I am very happy to be here. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I promise you the time we spend together will be very valuable. How many people here would like to double their income? If I can show you how, will you give it a try? I'm going to show you today how to double your income. I'm going to show you how everyone doubles their income, and it begins with changing the way you think. The starting point of doubling your income is very simple. Is make a decision to double your income and set it as a goal. If you do that, everything else changes for you. Now, I have some good news. The good news is that we are living at the very best time in all of human history. South Korea has become a role model for the rest of the world. South Korea is talked about all over the world as a model for what is possible in any country. And I am so honored to be with you. I thank you very much for inviting me to come. We have now entered into the 21st century, and many things have changed. One of the most important things that has changed is that we have left the world of physical work and we've moved into the world of mental work. All your success is going to be determined by how well you think. The most effective thinkers are the ones who will control the future. And you are among the top 10% of people in our society. How do I know that? It's because you're here. It is always the top 10% of people who come to these programs. It is always the people who have a wonderful future who come to these programs. I know because I have spoken to you and to other people like this for more than 20 years, and it's always the best people. So that is why I say you own the future if you decide to own the future. The 21st century is going to be the best time in all of human history. Here in South Korea, there are going to be more opportunities and more possibilities than ever in the history of this country, going back to 2,333 years before Christ, when the Hermit Kingdom was originally founded. There will never be more opportunities in South Korea than now, except for tomorrow and the next day and for the rest of your lives. This is a wonderful time to be alive. This is the best time in history for us to be alive. Now, I have spoken in 25 countries. I have traveled in 90 countries. I have learned different languages, not Korean, but I've learned different languages so that I could understand the cultures. When I was in my 30s, I went to university and I took a business degree. I have spent thousands of hours of study. I've read thousands of books. I've read hundreds of thousands of articles. And I've come to some ideas about why some people are more successful than others. And I'm going to share those with you in the time that we have together. So I have a question for you. Who is the most important person in this room? Exactly. You are the most important person in this room. You are the most important person in your world. And here's what I discovered, and it changed my life. I discovered that how important you think you are determines almost everything that happens to you. If you think that you are an important person, you like yourself more. If you like yourself more, you set bigger goals for yourself. If you like yourself more, you set higher standards for yourself. You persist longer. The more you like yourself, the more you like other people. The more you like other people, the more they like you and want to be in business with you. The more important you feel you are, the more valuable you feel you are, the better is your health, the better is your family. Here's what we discovered. Parents who like themselves raise children who like themselves. Parents who like themselves raise children who have high levels of self-confidence and who are willing to take on every challenge to be successful. The most wonderful thing you can do for your spouse and for your children is to like yourself and consider yourself to be a valuable person. So I want you to say these words for me. I want you to say the words, I like myself. From now on, whenever you think of any difficulty, you simply say, I like myself. When I was a young man and I learned this, my self-esteem was very low. And your self-esteem is very much like a tire with a slow leak. It starts to go flat whenever you go out to build your business or to build your life. So you have to keep pumping it up. I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Every time you say, I like myself, your self-esteem goes up. Every time you have a difficulty or a problem, your self-esteem goes down. When your self-esteem goes down, you pump it up. I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. When I started off with this, I would repeat this to myself 10 times, 20 times, 50 times a day. I needed it. All right? And you should do the same thing. But I don't suggest that you say this in crowded elevators or in public washrooms. But just say, I like myself. Whenever you are going into a meeting, you get yourself psychologically ready by talking to yourself in a positive way. Here's what we have learned. 95% of your emotions are determined by the way you talk to yourself. If you talk to yourself in a positive way, you have positive emotions. You have more self-confidence. You have high self-esteem. People like you. People want to do business with you. What percentage of your decisions are emotional, and what percentage of your decisions are logical or rational? Well, the answer is 100% of your decisions are emotional. Human beings are completely emotional. We decide with our emotions, and then we justify it with logic. If you want to build your business, remember this, is how people feel about you is the most important determination of what they do with you. If they like you and they like your personality, then they want to be associated with you. So when you go to work on yourself, you improve every part of your life. Final question, how many people here are self-employed? Well, the true answer is that everyone is self-employed. Everyone works for themselves. Everyone is the president of a company with one employee, yourself. You are the president of an entrepreneurial company with one service to sell, and that's your services. Even if you work for someone else for all your life, you are always self-employed. You are always the president of your own personal services corporation. Now, this is important because the top 3% of people in our society see themselves as self-employed. Average people think that they work for someone else. But then that means they think that someone else controls their life, that someone else makes decisions for them, that someone else will take care of them and love them and hold them. Most people, when they become adults, go from their home with their mother and father to work, and their boss becomes their mother and father. And they want to be taken care of like little children. But the fact is that when you become an adult, you become the president of your own life. Now, I have a magic pen here, and I got this pen in Switzerland, and it's a magic pen that gives me special powers. And you shouldn't believe that. But by the powers vested in me, I hereby dub you all presidents. You are all presidents. You are all CEOs. You are all in charge of your own lives and your own companies. Congratulations. If someone asks you where you were tonight, you say you were at a president's conference. Yes, you got together with other presidents from around Seoul to learn how to run your business more profitably in the coming year. If they say, well, I never heard about it, you say, well, you probably weren't on the list. They say, well, what did they talk about? And you will say, well, mostly presidential matters. They would be of no interest. They would be of no interest to staff. In fact, if you're not with your husband or wife tonight, afterwards you can phone home and say, I'm now the president of my own company. And your husband or wife will say, oh no, you've been fired again. But you are all presidents, right? Yeah. All right. Now, what that simply means is that you accept responsibility for your own life. You do not blame other people for your problems. You do not make excuses. You do not complain about things that you don't like. If you're not happy with something, you're the president. You change it. If you have problems, you solve them. If you have goals that you want to achieve, you achieve them. The big difference that I have seen working all over the world between people is that a small number of people, like yourself, are active. They take action to achieve their goals. But the majority of people are passive. They wait for someone else to come along and solve their problems. They are waiting for a bus on a street where no buses go. They keep waiting for the bus, and the bus never comes. They keep waiting for someone else to come and improve their lives, but not you. You are the elite. You're the top 10%. You are proactive. You make things happen. You don't wait for things to happen. Well, let me tell you about myself just a minute. I started off from a poor family. We did not have very much money. My father and mother did not always have jobs. From the time I was 10 years old, I worked in the neighborhood to earn my own money, to pay for my own clothes, and I never took money from my parents again from the age of 10. I did not graduate from high school. I finished in the half of the class that makes the top half possible. They say that everybody is good for something, even if it's only to be a bad example, and I was a bad example. So when I left school, the only job that I could get was washing dishes in the back of a small hotel. And when I lost that job, I got a job washing cars with a car company. And when I lost that job, I got a job washing floors with a janitorial service. I thought that washing was going to be in my future, but it was a downhill trend. So when I lost those jobs, and lost, when you say I lost a job when you're young, it means that you got fired. When I got fired from these jobs, I would go to the next job. I used to live in my car at one time because I didn't have a place to live. I would work in factories, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes overnight. I worked in sawmills and lumber mills in the mountains. I worked in construction labor. I worked on farms and ranches. I worked on a ship in the North Atlantic. I did laboring jobs for many years. How many people here are in sales? Okay, well, that's what I got into when I couldn't get a laboring job as well. So I know where you're coming from. So I got into sales, and I didn't know how to sell. They told me that all you have to do is talk to enough people and you'll be successful. Well, I wasn't afraid to work. So I went and began talking to people, but nobody bought anything. So I would talk to more people, and still nobody bought anything. So I began to run from place to place so I could be rejected more often. And I did this for about 6 months, going around in circles, and every so often, occasionally, I would make a sale, which was just enough to stay alive. Then one day I did something that changed my life, and it brought us here together. I went to the top salesman in my company. He was selling 10 times as much as anybody else. And I asked him, "What are you doing differently from me?" And he said, "Well, let me see if I can help you." He said, "Show me your sales presentation." I said, "What's a sales presentation?" He said, "Well, it's a logical and orderly way of selling your product." And I said, you mean there is a logical and orderly way of selling?" And he said, "Yes," and he showed me a logical, orderly way, which I'll explain to you a little bit later. And so I began to sell in a logical way. It's very much like phoning with a telephone. If I ask you for your phone number and I say I will call you later, and you give me your number, well, then I can take out my phone. They provide these phones in the hotel. I could take out my phone. Anyway, and if I know your number, I can put in your number. I can put in your number, and the phone will ring and you will answer the phone. Now, if I give your number to someone else, they can phone you. I give the number to someone else, they can phone you. As long as you have the right phone number, you can get through to the person. But what if I said to you, "I will phone you later this week," and you said yes, and I said goodbye? And you say, "Well, don't you want my number?" I say, "No, it's no problem. I will find out your number by pushing the buttons." And so I'll just push your number and say, "Are you there?" "No?" Well, I'll just push some more buttons. How long would it take me to get through to a person if I just pushed the buttons randomly? Probably my whole life. Probably never. But if I had the right numbers in the right order, I could get through immediately. If you sell in the right order, if you do anything in the right proper sequence, you make far better results than if you just do it randomly. So he showed me how to sell systematically. So I began selling in a logical order, and my sales went up. And then I began reading books on selling, and my sales went up. And I began listening to audio programs on selling, and my sales went up. And then I began to attend conferences like this. And I still remember the first one that I attended. I'd never been to one before, and I sat and took notes, and then I practiced what I learned, and my sales went up, and up and up. And soon, I was the top salesman. Soon, the person who started me was working for me. Within a year, I was in charge of all the salespeople. Within 2 years, I was in charge of 6 countries, and I had 95 salespeople. And my whole life was transformed. Now, what I learned was this. What I learned was the oldest law in human philosophy, the oldest law in human history, which is the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect says that everything happens for a reason. It says that success is not an accident. Failure is not an accident. I learned later that my friend, who was earning 10 times as much as anybody else, had worked for a large company some years before. The large company had spent 1 year training him in professional selling. As a result, he could go anywhere, in any country. He could sell any product because he had the formula. He had the recipe. He had the system. And once he shared the recipe with me, I could sell as much as I wanted anywhere I went. And once I shared it with other people, they could sell as much as they wanted. Today, when I travel around the world to countries that I have worked in before, where I've recruited salespeople, I meet them again, and they are millionaires. They are wealthy. They own their own businesses. They own property. They have large bank accounts. These are people that I recruited new off the street who had no money, had no job, had no sales skills, and I trained them in the method of selling, and today they're wealthy. All over the world, they're rich. I sat down with a gentleman who worked for me many years ago, last year. He is now worth about $25 million. And when he came to work for me, he had only old clothes and no money. He had not eaten for about 2 or 3 days. And I took him in, and I gave him food, and I got him clothes, and I taught him how to sell. And today, he's a very wealthy and powerful man. He owns many businesses. And I said to him, I said, you know, I am very proud of what you have made of your life, of what you have accomplished. And he said, yes, he said, and I still remember where I started when you taught me how to sell so many years ago. So, is it possible? I have some news for you. Nobody is better than you, and nobody is smarter than you. No one is better, and no one is smarter. Now, this is a major problem that we have in adult life. When you're growing up, you compare yourself with other people. Other people get better grades than you. You work hard, but still other people get better grades than you. When I was going to school, I got terrible grades at school. In fact, there are people in this room who got poor grades in school. Yes. And we know who you are. You may be sitting next to one of those people right now. This is what happens. If somebody gets better grades than you, you think, well, this person is smarter than me. So therefore, if this person is smarter, then I must be dumber. So therefore, why should I try? Because he is smarter, and I'm dumber. Then we go to the next step. We think, well, if he's smarter than me, he's probably better than me. But if he's better than me, then I am worse than he is. So then we think, well, he must be worth more than me, so I must be worth less. And this is the big problem we have, is we always look at ourselves as being less than other people. What changed my life was when I discovered that nobody's better than you and nobody's smarter than you. People are just smarter in different ways. People have different talents and abilities. When I was going to school, there was a boy, who got top grades in every class. He got scholarships to the best universities, and he never worked. He was very friendly, and he never worked. He always got top grades. If he got 99% in an examination, he would be angry with himself because he always got 100%. Today, he sells used cars on a small car lot in a small town. And that's what he's been doing for 20 years, selling used cars. Me, I didn't even graduate from school, and I'm doing better than he is. Here's my point. Here's my point. Nobody's better than you. Nobody's smarter than you. He just had figured out, he had learned how to study. And studying is a skill. You can actually take a course in study skills, and if you take the course in study skills, you get straight A's from then on. If nobody ever gave you a course in study skills, then you may have gotten poor grades in school, and even today, 20 or 30 years later, you're still thinking, well, I'm not very smart because I didn't get good grades in school. And what that does is it causes you to put your foot on your own brakes and hold yourself back. Instead of setting big goals, you set little goals. Instead of persisting, you quit. Instead of becoming really successful, you think of excuses and reasons why it's not possible. Oh, I'm too young. Oh, I'm too old. Or I didn't go to college or university. Or I didn't come from a rich home. Or I'm not handsome. Or I'm not beautiful. Or something. We always think of reasons to hold ourselves back. I would like to tell you that there are no reasons. All of the reasons exist in your own mind. They don't exist in reality. Well, so I traveled and I began to learn this law of cause and effect. I applied it in every business I ever went into. The first question I asked is, how do you succeed in this business? And I would go to the top people in the business and I would say, ask for their advice. How do you succeed in this business? And they told me, and I did it, and I achieved success. I would go to the library and I would check out all the books on real estate, importation and distribution, management, sales, sales management, business building, entrepreneurship. I would take out all the books and I would read and read and read and read, and then I would go and practice. Now I asked before, who is the most important person in this room? And you're right, you are the most important person. What is the most important part of this day, of this time we spend together? The answer is the actions you take afterwards. The most important part of what you learn is not the content of what you learn, it's the actions that you take. All successful people are action-oriented. They're constantly taking action on new ideas. Now, if you take action on a new idea, only two things can happen. What are they? Well, you can succeed or you can fail. If you succeed, you do more of that. If you fail, you learn and become smarter, which makes it more likely you will succeed next time. So you cannot lose by taking action. You can only lose by not acting at all. And the majority of people don't take action. The majority of people will hear good ideas, but then they'll always have an excuse for not taking action today. Many years ago, I spoke with Rich DeVos, the founder of Amway Corporation. And we were talking about these subjects, and he said to me, he said that we have determined in our business that there's a direct relationship between how quickly a person takes action on a new idea and how likely it is that they will ever be successful at anything. What we find is that people who hear a new idea and take action within 24 hours will take action on other ideas as well. But if a person hears a new idea and doesn't do anything with it for a few days, the chances are nothing will ever happen. He said action orientation is the key. The best studies that have been done in the last 50 years, looking at successful people whose lives are going better and better, and unsuccessful people whose lives have flattened out, they find that successful people have one quality: they're always taking action. They're always doing more things. So if you hear something good tonight, be sure to take action on it. And take action as fast as you can. because that soon becomes a habit. And when you develop the habit of action orientation, you will accomplish more in the next 2 or 3 years than the other person accomplishes in 10 or 20 years. Action orientation transforms your life. Well, what I learned from this law of cause and effect was this. Thoughts are causes, and conditions, the conditions of your life, are the effects. Thoughts are causes, and conditions are effects. Your thinking creates your life. Now, this is the greatest thought in history. This is the great thought of all the religions and all philosophy and all psychology and all success, is that your thoughts create your life. That you can actually change your life by changing the thoughts that you think. Because your life always goes in the direction of your thinking. So here's the great rule for success. It is that you become what you think about most of the time. You become what you think about most of the time. So the question is, what do you think about most of the time? What do you think about most of the time? By the way, this law is true, but it's not 100% true, because if it was 100% true, then every young man would turn into a young woman by the age of 20. So, the question is, what do you think about most of the time? Well, in the last 25 years, big companies have spent many millions of dollars searching for the answer to this question. Several companies, some years ago, put together a pool of more than $20 million. And what they wanted to do was discover what top salespeople think about most of the time. Top business people, top entrepreneurs. Because if they were going to hire salespeople or business people, they wanted to have a profile that would help them make better hiring decisions. So they interviewed more than 350,000 people like you. And they would interview them every week for 6 weeks or 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And once each week they would phone them up and they would say, what are you thinking about right now? And the person would say, well, I'm thinking about this, and they would write it down. 1 week later, they would call and say, what are you thinking about right now? They would do this every week for many months. And gradually, they began to see a profile. And they then took this group of people and they sliced them up into 10%. The bottom 10%, the next 10%, and finally the top 10%. And you are in the top 10%. So they looked at the way people in the top 10% think most of the time. And can you guess what the top people, the happiest, highest paid, most successful people think about most of the time? Can you guess? Well, the answer is they think about what they want and how to get it most of the time. Now you say, that's too simple. No, it's the key to success. Is successful people think about what they want and how to get it. They think about their making more money and doubling their income. They think about health, and they think about their family. They think about their home. They think about their car. They think about what they want most of the time, and they think about how to get it. Now, I want to share with you a word which you already know, and this is the most important word for success. Are you ready? It's the word how. Okay. So from now on, whenever you have a goal, the only question you ask is how. Whenever you have a problem, the only question you ask is, how do I solve it? If you want to double your income, the only question you ask is, how do I double my income? So I want you to say the word. Say how. Now, say it again. How. Wonderful. From now on, Whenever there's anything in your life that you want to change, the only question you ask is how. Because how is the question of the top 10%. How is the question of the self-responsible person. How is the question of the action-oriented person. The person who asks how is one of the top people in our society. Everyone works for and under the people who think in terms of how. Here's a good point. Every goal that you could ever have has already been achieved by someone. Every problem you could ever have has already been solved by someone. Every question you could ever ask has already been answered by someone. Your question is simply to ask how. How did others do it? And there's a rule in success that says success leaves tracks. In other words, there are tracks to any kind of success you want, and your job is to find the tracks and follow the tracks to double your income, to create a wonderful life. All the answers have been found. And nobody's better than you, nobody's smarter than you. If someone is doing better than you today, there's a simple explanation. They figured out how before you did. That's all. And here's another discovery. Anything anyone else has done, you can do as well. If they have done it, that means you can do it. We're not talking about being an Olympic athlete. We're not talking about winning a Nobel Prize in physics. We're just talking about being a big success in life. And if there are hundreds of thousands or millions of other people who are successful starting from very little, it means that you can do it as well. As long as you keep asking the question, how? Okay. So, we find in interviewing these people that the top people have one special quality. And this is a quality that makes South Korea one of the great countries in the world today. Not because of size, but because of your accomplishments. 20 years ago, 50 years ago, South Korea was a very different country from today. Today, South Korea is one of the most respected countries in the world. And soon, if your coach works out, the South Korean soccer team will be one of the most respected soccer teams in the world, right? If Gus Riddick can get everybody working together, soon you will be one of the top, if not the #1 soccer team in the world. It's going to happen because Gus Riddick has only one question, and that's how. How do we make this a world-class soccer team? Right? All right. So we ask, what is the most important quality for success, happiness, and long life? Can you guess what the most important quality is? Well, the answer is very simple. In interviewing tens of thousands of successful people, they find the #1 quality is the quality of optimism. Successful people are optimists. They are positive about themselves and their future. They think about what they want most of the time, and they are what we call realistic optimists. That means they recognize that there are a lot of problems in the world, but they are realistic and they're optimistic about solving the problems and achieving their goals. So what we learned is this, is that optimism is a quality of mind, and you can compare your mind with your body in this way. Is you can have physical fitness just as you can have mental fitness. Now, if you want to be physically fit, you exercise physically. That's how you become physically fit. And you might have to exercise for a long time. If you want to become mentally fit, which is if you want to become an optimist, you have to exercise mentally as well. And so we find that optimists have 3 special ways of thinking that you can practice, and when you practice them, you become an optimist. When you become an optimist, you are happier, you are more successful, you have higher self-esteem, You like other people more. Other people like you and want to do business with you. When you are an optimist, every door opens for you. If you're a pessimist, every door closes. By the way, before I tell you the keys to optimism, to learning how to become an optimist, can you guess what unhappy, negative, unsuccessful people think about most of the time? Well, the answer is they think the opposite way from optimists. Optimists think about what they want and how to get it. Pessimists think about what they don't want, their problems, and who's to blame. Optimists think about the future and where they're going. Pessimists think about the past and who hurt them in the past. Optimists let go of the past because they can't do anything about it. Pessimists hold on to the past because it's all they have. So your job is to let go of the past. One of the great rules for success in life is don't spend any time worrying about something that you can't change. And you can't change the past. So instead of worrying about the past and what happened and who's to blame and thinking about how you could have done it differently, instead let it go and focus on where you're going. There's a wonderful little line that says this: when you turn toward the sunshine, the shadows fall behind you. Your job in life is to turn toward the sunshine, which is to think about what you want. So here's the 3 keys. Number 1, think about what you want and how to get it most of the time. That will keep you positive and optimistic. Number 2, look for the good in every situation. Look for the good in every person. Look for the good in every difficulty. Develop the habit of saying the words, "That's good," whenever something goes wrong. For example, you find out that your house burned down. Well, that's good. You needed a house closer to work anyway. Your car got stolen. Well, that's good. The ashtrays were full anyway. You lost your job. You lost your job. Well, that's good because you didn't like the job anyway. So keep looking for something good. Now, let me ask you a question. Does anybody have in their home a dimmer switch that you turn up and down to increase the light, lower the light? Does anybody have a dimmer switch at home? Okay. Say yes. Okay. Okay. Everybody has a dimmer switch. All right. If you don't have a dimmer switch, you know what it is. All right? So you notice they have a dimmer switch in this room. They keep changing the lights up and down. The person who is operating this dimmer switch is smoking something. So he's having a good time. He's turning the switch up and down. Anyway. Here's the rule. When you turn a dimmer switch up, it's bright. When you turn it down, it's dark. You have a dimmer switch on your brain as well. When you think about what you want and how to get it, your dimmer switch goes on full. When your mental dimmer switch is fully lit, you are more creative, you are more positive, you have more energy, you are more personable and friendly, you are more intelligent, you are the best person you can possibly be when your dimmer switch is on full. And whenever you think about what you want and how to get it, your dimmer switch goes on full. Whenever you think or look for the good in a difficult situation, your dimmer switch goes on full. By the way, here's the rule. If you look for something good in a difficult situation, you'll always find it. You will always find it. You will always find something good if you look for it. And when you find it, your dimmer switch will go on full. Here's the 3rd key to becoming a complete optimist. And it is to look for the valuable lesson in every difficulty or problem that you have. Let me repeat. Look for the valuable lesson in every problem or difficulty that you have. And a couple of things will happen. First, while you're looking for the lesson, your dimmer switch will go on full, and you'll be positive, you'll be creative, you'll be high energy. If you're looking for who's to blame and what went wrong, your dimmer switch goes right down to negative. When your dimmer switch is down low, you become angry, you become fearful, you become worried, you become impatient, and so on. So your job is to keep your dimmer switch on full most of the time. Successful people are people who make a habit of thinking the thoughts that keep their dimmer switch on full, rather than allowing themselves to think thoughts that make them feel unhappy. So, I had a friend once who told me that every time God wants to send you a gift, He wraps it up in a problem. And if God wants to send you a big gift, which means a really valuable lesson, He wraps it up in a big problem. So I know that many of you feel you have too many gifts right now. But if you look into every problem as a gift, you'll always find the gift. And I want to give you an exercise. First of all, question, does anybody here have any problems? Of course, we all have problems. It is normal and natural to have problems. All of life is a continuous series of problems. The only interruption in this series of problems is the occasional crisis. So, if you're living a normal life, you will have a crisis every 2 or 3 months. It will be problem, 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 crisis. Problem, 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 crisis. So your life will be a series of problems and crises. Which means, by the way, that everyone in this room is either in a crisis right now, or you just got out of a crisis, or you're just about to have a crisis. And that's the way the world works. The only thing that matters is how you deal with the problems and crises. So I want you to think about your problems. And imagine that your problems are like a stack of dishes, a stack of plates. There's always one plate on top. This is the biggest problem that you have in your whole life. I want you to think about your problems and say, all right, what is the biggest problem I have today? This is the problem that causes you the most worry. This is the problem that makes you the most unhappy. This is your biggest problem in life. Sometimes it's a financial problem. Sometimes it's a relationship problem. Sometimes it's a health problem. But I want you to think about your biggest problem just for a moment. And then I want you to imagine that this problem was designed just for you on the other side of the universe. And it was designed by a great power in the universe that wants you to be successful and happy. And this power knows that for you to be successful and happy, you have to learn a series of lessons. And this power also knows that you will not learn a lesson unless it hurts in some way. Unless you suffer emotional pain, or financial pain, or physical pain, unless you suffer in some way, you will not learn. So, the biggest problem you have today has been designed by this power and sent to you at this moment to teach you a lesson that you need to learn to be successful and happy in the future. The only question is, are you going to learn the lesson? Or does your problem have to get bigger and bigger before you learn the lesson? Because this power is very patient. This power will send you the lesson you need at a low level with a small amount of pain. But if you don't learn the lesson, it will come around and it will come back at a higher level with more pain. If you still don't learn the lesson, it will come around and whack, and it will hurt even more until you finally say, stop hitting me, I've learned my lesson. And once you've learned your lesson, you then go on to the next problem, where you will then get another lesson. In your whole life, every problem that you ever have contains a lesson. And if you look for the lesson, your dimmer switch goes on full, and you become more positive, you become more powerful, you become more confident, you become more experienced, you become more intelligent by simply searching for the lessons in every problem that you have. And every problem contains a lesson. Now, if you want to have tremendous positive influence on other people, here's a very simple way. Especially your friends, your business associates, your downlines, and your children, is help them be clear about what they want and encourage them to think and talk about what they want most of the time. When your friends or your family have problems, help them to look for the good in the problem. And while you're both looking for the good, both of your dimmer switches will go on full. And finally, if you have a person in your life who has a problem, ask them this question. What lesson are you meant to learn from this problem? What lesson is contained in this problem that is just for you? And my promise is you'll always find the lesson. And the lesson will be of greater value than the cost of the problem. Does anybody know what I'm talking about so far? Yeah. This makes sense. Okay, so this is the way the top people think most of the time. This is the way the top people think. Now, optimists have two special qualities. Optimists, as I said, are realistic, but optimists also have what we call an unrealistic expectation of success. They expect to be successful. In reading hundreds of stories of men and women who have achieved great success in life, most of them came from very limited backgrounds. Most of them had no advantages when they started off. In reading hundreds of stories, you find one common quality among successful people, is they expect to be successful. No matter what happens, no matter how many times they have setbacks and difficulties, they keep coming back because they expect to be successful. They have unrealistic expectations of success. Even if everything seems to be against them, they still believe that they're going to be successful. And they never let go of that idea. Imagine that your mind is like a computer. And as you know, a computer runs on the programs that are put into the computer. So imagine that there was a computer store that sold beliefs, because your mind runs on your beliefs. If you have positive, optimistic beliefs, that's how you run your life. If you have negative or fearful beliefs, that's how your life runs. So imagine there was a special computer store, and you could go down and you could buy a special belief for yourself and program it in to the back of your mental computer. What would be the very best belief for you to have? Well, I've thought about this for 25 years. And my answer is, the best belief for you to have is this, is that you are going to be really successful and really happy in your life. If you have this belief, the belief is, I am going to be really successful and really happy in my life. If you have this belief, you will act in a way consistent with this belief. You will do the things consistent with your belief, and you will eventually have a happy and successful life. So the most important belief you can have, and it's the same belief that all top people have throughout history, is that you are going to be a big success in life. That's your belief. If you believe that you're going to be a big success, it will trigger two special behaviors. Special behavior number one is that you will try more things. You will try more different things. You will talk to more people. You will make more calls. You will read more books. You will take more actions. You will set more goals. You will try more things. In our society, we believe a lot in luck. When we see someone who is successful, we say that person was lucky. And we do all kinds of things so we can be sure of having as much luck in our life as possible. However, when I went to university in the 30s, I took a course on the subject of what is called probabilities. And it's a very difficult course to take. Has anybody taken this course in school? Probability theory? Don't take the course. It's a terrible course. But you have to, but what they teach you is that there's a probability of everything happening. There's a probability of you living to be 80 years old. There's a probability of you driving your car without an accident for a year. There's a probability that lightning will strike somewhere. There's a probability that you will become rich in the course of your lifetime. Now, your job and my job is to increase the probabilities for the things we want to happen. Here's the discovery. If you try more things and you try more different things, you increase the probability of success. And when you're successful, it's not luck, it's just that you tried more things. If you try more things, you increase the probability that you will try the right thing at the right time with the right resources. If you try only a few things, you lower the probability of success. You and I cannot control what is going to work and what is not going to work. We can't control what will be successful and what will not be successful. But we can control the number of different things that we try. And if you control the number of things that you try, and you try more things, by extension, you will guarantee your success. Every successful person is an optimist who tries lots of things because he believes he is destined to be successful, or she believes that she is destined to be successful. So try more things. Now, the second quality of optimists is that they persist longer than other people. As a matter of fact, optimists never quit. Optimists continue to persist week after week, month after month, year after year. Optimists never give up. They just never quit. It is the greatest of all rules for success is, first of all, try more things, and second of all, never give up. Now, here's something I learned when I began studying this subject in psychology many years ago. I found that if you get into a traffic accident, it's too late to take a course in first aid. Okay? It's too late. If you want to be useful in a traffic accident, you must take your first aid course before the accident. It's the same thing in life. You are going to have many problems and setbacks and temporary failures. These will happen. And if when they happen, it's too late to then decide what you're going to do about it. So here is the secret, is make a decision now that when I have problems in the future, I am not going to stop. I am not going to quit. I am going to set a goal to double my income, and then I'm going to double it again. And no matter how many problems I have, I will just keep going. I will not quit. If you make that decision in your conscious mind, it will be accepted as a command by your subconscious mind. Then, when you go out and you have setbacks and difficulties, you're already programmed. And you immediately respond and you don't quit. When I learned this in my early 20s, it had an enormous impact on my life. From then on, I made a decision that when I set a goal, I would never quit. I would simply never quit. And I don't have any more intelligence or ability than you do, but I do know one thing, is I just never quit. I mean, you can shoot me, boom, dead, but I won't quit. I will just keep on going like so that must be your decision as well. You make a decision when you've decided that you want something in your life, you want to double your income, that you are going to double your income, and you will not quit. You will just keep on trying more things until you succeed. And if you make that decision, your success is guaranteed. Your success is guaranteed. Okay, let me... Now, I'm going to give you a quick test. I'm going to ask you to write down your 3 most important goals in life right now. Please take out your piece of paper, your pad, and write down your 3 most important goals in life right now. You have 30 seconds to write. You now have 20 seconds left. Write quickly. If you can't think of 3 goals, just write money, money, money. You have 10 seconds left. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. Now this is a special method of goal setting that you can use all your life. We just have discovered that if you only have 30 seconds to write down your 3 most important goals, your answers will be as accurate as if you had 30 minutes or 3 hours. When you are forced to write down your 3 most important goals, your true goals will emerge on the paper. Now let me see if I can guess what your 3 goals were. In 80% of cases, your 3 goals will be a financial goal, a health goal, and a relationship or family goal. Right? Yeah. And the reason for that is simple. Those are the 3 main areas of your life. Now I want to tell you something else. If I were to ask you, what are your 3 biggest problems in life? Your 3 goals are the solutions to your 3 problems. If you achieved the 3 goals, you'd solve your 3 biggest problems. One last point is, remember we said that successful people think about the future and where they're going? When you write down those 3 goals, that tells you your future. Because both consciously and unconsciously, each day you are moving toward achieving those goals. Even if you're not even thinking about it, you're still working toward achieving those goals, because those are your subconscious goals. You are moving toward them, and they are moving toward you. Well, what I want you to do, and here's the exercise, is for the next 24 hours, I want you to think about those 3 goals all the time. I want you to think about the 3 goals, and I only want you to ask one question. And the question is, how? Yes, it's how. You are good students. All right. Now, we have interviewed the top 10%, and as I said, you're in the top 10%. We've interviewed the top 10% extensively and asked them, what do you think about most of the time? And we find that the top 10% of people have a special way or several special ways of thinking most of the time. These are all learnable ways of thinking. You can learn to think like the top people. And when you think like the top people, you will get the same results as the top people. It's a law that says that your outer world will always be a mirror or a reflection of your inner world. So therefore, your outer world today is a reflection of what you're thinking about today most of the time. If you change what you're thinking, if you reprogram, then your outer world will change so it's consistent with your inner program. It's sort of like projecting on a screen. Imagine that your eyes are projection lenses, the screen is your reality or your world, and your thoughts are what are projected through your eyes onto the screen. You always project yourself onto the screen of your life. Wherever you look, you see yourself. Wherever you look, there is yourself reflected back. So, how do top people think most of the time? They have what we call orientations. Now, an orientation is a general way of thinking. And the first orientation is what we call future orientation. That means that top people think about the future most of the time. Top people think about where they're going most of the time. But top people have a special way of thinking about the future. And the special way is this, is they imagine a perfect future for themselves. They imagine a happy future. They imagine an ideal future for themselves. So here's an exercise. Imagine that you have a magic wand and that you could wave this magic wand over the future. And you could pick a date 5 years from now, and 5 years from now your life will be perfect in every way. If your life was perfect in every way, like a magic wand, what would it look like? What would you be doing in 5 years if your life was perfect? How much money would you have if your life was perfect? What kind of a family or marriage would you have if your life was perfect? What kind of a home would you live in? What kind of a car would you drive? How much money would you have in the bank? How much money would you be earning? Who would you be with in 5 years? Who would you no longer be with in 5 years? If your life was perfect in every way, what would it look like? Now, the greater clarity you have with regard to the answer to this question, the faster you move toward it, the faster it moves toward you. The greater clarity you have, the easier it is to make decisions. The greater clarity you have of your future vision for your life, the easier it is for you to learn lessons. Now, I flew here from Los Angeles yesterday morning. I left Los Angeles, and when the plane left and got into the air, the pilot came over and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be arriving in Seoul in 12 hours and 37 minutes. 12 hours and 37 minutes. And then the plane started. Now, if you know anything about airplanes, you know that airplane was off course 99% of the time. 99% of the time, the airplane was off course. All airplanes are off course 99% of the time. So, the pilots are continually bringing the plane back on course. They have winds that move the plane. They have turbulence and clouds. They go up and down. So the plane is off course 99% of the time. But can you guess when the plane arrived in Seoul, how long the flight took? 12 hours and 37 minutes. And the plane landed in the Seoul airport exactly to the minute that they predicted in Los Angeles when the plane took off, even though it was off course most of the time. When you have a clear vision for your future and you know what your perfect future will look like, you will be off course most of the time. You'll be making mistakes, and you'll be trying more things, and you'll be learning lessons, and you'll have temporary setbacks, and you'll have difficulties, and you'll be learning from every experience, and you'll be getting off course and on course and off course and on course. And just at the right time, you will achieve your goal. You will arrive at the airport of your goal exactly the way you saw it, as long as you're clear about your destination. Imagine if I took off in a Korean airliner plane, and the pilot came on and said, "Thank you for flying with Korean Air. We don't know where we're going, so we're going to fly around for a while and see if we find anything nice." That's how most people live their lives. They're flying a plane, your mind, that can take you across the world with great accuracy, but because they don't have a destination, they just go around in circles. How many times have you met someone and then met them again 5 years later and their life is still the same? They still have the same problems. They still have no money. They still have problems at work. 5 years later, nothing has changed. They're going around in circles. Now, an airplane goes around in circles until what happens? It runs out of fuel. And then it crashes. Do you know that airplanes do not coast? Jets have to be moving at about 250 kilometers an hour in order to land. If they slow below 250 kilometers, they fall like a stone out of the air, and they go splat. If ever you take a flight and they say, ladies and gentlemen, the life jackets are under the seat. In case of an emergency water landing, proceed to the emergency exit door and put on your life jacket, blow it up, like this. Have you seen those? It never happens. Those warnings were for 50 or 100 years ago when they had little planes, when they had propeller planes. And there was a chance, a very small chance, that one of these planes would land on water. Today, jets don't land on water. Jets fall out of the sky like a bottle falling from the top of a hotel onto a concrete parking lot. And they go splat. Anyway, most people fly around in circles until they run out of gas or they run out of life. And then they just crash. And they never accomplish anything. But when you have a clear destination with the same intelligence as a person who is a genius, with the same intelligence, you can fly straight and clear and true like an arrow to your target. So, first of all, have a future orientation and just imagine your perfect future. And don't worry about people who say it's not possible, you're too young, you're too old. Don't listen to negative people. What you say is, if someone else can do it, I can do it as well. And then you look around and you find someone who's done it and you go and ask them for their advice. And successful people will always give you advice. They will always tell you what to do. And if you just do what other successful people do, you soon get the same results that other successful people get. By the way, here's a quick point. Rich DeVos of Amway also told me this. He said, if you're not going to commit for 5 years to this business, he said, don't get into it at all. He said, it takes 5 years to master any new business. And this is based on years of research. If you decide to become a salesperson, it will take you 5 years to master it. If you decide to become a lawyer, it will take you 5 years after you graduate before you will begin to become successful. If you decide to become a doctor, after all your training, it will still take 5 more years before you are successful. So therefore, if you're not willing to commit 5 years, don't start at all. Right. Well, so develop future orientation and think about the future most of the time. If someone has a problem, you say, okay, what's the solution? And think about the future. When someone makes a mistake, you say, okay, you've made a mistake. Next time, in the future, why don't we do it this way? Keep thinking about the future. And when you're thinking about the future, your dimmer switch is on full and you're happy and you're more positive and you have more energy and you're more creative. You're the best person that you can be. Almost all of our problems in life come from people who are talking about the past. They're worrying about the past. They're angry about the past. They're critical about the past. They keep talking about the past. Don't be like that. Think about the future. Now, the second quality of top people is top people are goal-oriented. Top people are goal-oriented in that they think about their goals most of the time. They think about their goals and how to achieve them most of the time. So let me give you a simple 7-step formula for setting and achieving goals. There are many more elaborate or bigger formulas, but I will give you a 7-step formula that you can write down on one of the back pages of your booklet. Step number 1 is to decide exactly what you want. Most people have no idea of what they really want. They say, well, I want to make more money. But that's not a goal. That's just a wish or a fantasy. They say, I want to be healthy. But that's not a goal. These are not goals, okay? A goal is something that is very clear and measurable. So decide exactly what you want. Number 2 is write it down. Write it down on paper. The very act of taking a goal and writing it down increases the likelihood, the probability of achieving it by 10 times, by 1,000%. So write it down. Number 3 is set a deadline. Set a date at which you will achieve the goal. Sometimes people say, well, what if I write a deadline and I don't achieve it by the deadline? Then you set a new deadline. And you keep setting new deadlines until you finally come to the right deadline. So number 1 is decide what you want. Number 2 is write it down. Number 3 is set a deadline. If you just do that, you will have separated yourself from most of the people in the world. Number 3 is make a list. Make a list of everything that you could think of to do to achieve the goal. Every step, every activity, every action. Write down everything you can think of. And as you think of new things later, write them on the list. Keep writing your list until your list is complete. You can't think of anything else. Number 5 is take your list and organize the list. Organize the list by priority. What do you have to do first? Organize the list by sequence. What do you have to do before you do something else? And a list organized by priority and sequence is a plan. So now you have a goal and a plan. Now you've moved into the top 3% of people in the world. You have a goal and a plan. Step number 5 is take action immediately on your plan. Take one step. Take any step. But do something immediately to start the process moving. Do you remember that Confucius once said, a journey of 1,000 leagues begins with a single step? What we have found in history is that the achievement of any great goal begins with a single step. And then you take another step. And then you take another step. And if you take enough steps, you can accomplish any goal in the world. So number 7 is do something, take action on your goal every day. Every single day, once you have decided on your goal, and let's say that your goal is to double your income, okay? Once you have decided to double your income, every single day do something that moves you in that direction. Never let a day go past. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, do something every day that moves you toward your most important goal. If you can do that, you change your life. Because here's the wonderful thing. When you have a clear future vision, and then you break it down on paper into goals, and then you do something every day that moves you towards your goal, you feel happy. You feel powerful. Your self-esteem goes up. You feel confident. Your dimmer switch goes on full. You become more optimistic and more creative. Your whole world works better with a goal. And the reason most people are unhappy today is because they don't have any goals. Just like the ship's pilot, or the aircraft pilot, not having a destination, they would just go in circles. So I'm going to give you an exercise. This is good stuff. What I want you to do before the end of the day, before you go to bed tonight, I want you to take a sheet of paper, and at the top of this sheet of paper, write the word goals, and then write today's date. Then I want you to write down 10 goals. Write down 10 goals that you would like to accomplish in the next year. You can write more than 10 if you like, but you write at least 10. Now this is the only real exercise I'm going to give you, and if you do this, it will change your life. Write down a list of 10 goals. So I want you to promise me that before you go to bed tonight, you'll make a list of 10 goals. Promise me, say yes. Yes. Okay. Now, even if you're lying, say yes. I gave this exercise to a seminar of 500 women at a convention some years ago. 2 months later, I met a woman who had been at that seminar. And they were sharing rooms in the hotel. She was sharing a room with another woman. They had come from different parts of the country, and they were sharing a room to keep expenses down. She said, my whole life has changed since I wrote my 10 goals. She said, it's wonderful. I've accomplished half of the goals. I am making twice as much money. She said, my life is transformed. She said, but let me tell you a story. She said, when I got back to my room that night with my roommate, and we all said, yes, I'll write down 10 goals, I immediately got out a piece of paper and I began to write my goals. And my roommate said, what are you doing? I said, well, I promised Brian I would write down 10 goals. So I'm writing down my 10 goals. She said, that's just silly. That doesn't work. That's just something you say in conventions. She said, oh no. She said, I promised to write down my 10 goals. She said, oh, don't waste your time. She said, no, I said I would do it, and I'm going to do it. So she wrote down her 10 goals. Well, the unfortunate part of the story is this, is the woman who didn't write down the 10 goals had left the business and gone back to working as a waitress in a cafe. The woman who had written down her 10 goals had transformed her life and doubled her income in 2 months. So, once you've written down your 10 goals, there's one more part of the exercise. I want you to look at your list of goals, and I want you to ask this question. Which one goal on this list, if I could achieve it within 24 hours, would have the biggest positive impact or effect on my life? Which one goal? And you read through your list of goals, and you pick the one goal that if you could achieve that would have the greatest impact on your life. Then you take that goal and you write it at the top of a new piece of paper. And then you set a deadline. And then you make a list of everything you can think of to achieve that goal. And then you organize the list by priority and sequence. And then you take action on that goal, and you do something every day. If you will follow this formula that I've just given you, write down 10 goals, select the most important goal, make a plan to achieve that most important goal, and do something every day, my promise to you is in a week, a month, a year from now, your whole life will be different. You will never be the same. This changed my life. It's changed the life of every person who has ever practiced it. As long as you don't make an excuse not to write down your 10 goals before you go to bed. Because I'm coming over to your house tonight to check. Now, the last orientation I want to share with you is excellence orientation. Excellence orientation means that you must commit to excellence to be successful. You must decide that whatever you do for a living, you are going to be the best at what you do. Now, when I talk about be the best or commit to excellence, I mean commit to getting into the top 10% in your business. The top 10% in terms of income. Now, you can find out how much the top 10% of people make. And remember, you're already in the top 10% in terms of your thinking, and that's what's most important. So decide to commit to excellence and get into the top 10%. This was a major problem for me. When I was growing up, I failed in school, I failed in sports, I had no friends, I got fired from jobs more times than I can count. And so the idea of excellence was too big an idea for me. I didn't believe that I was good enough to be good, that I was good enough to be excellent at anything. And so I would always hold myself back, and I always had an excuse not to try. And then I learned something that changed my life. I learned that everybody who is in the top 10% started in the bottom 10%. Everybody who is doing well today was once doing poorly. Everybody who is at the top of your field was once not even in your field or business at all. And anything that anyone else has done, you can do as well. When I learned that, it changed my life. What I learned was that if you decide to be excellent, you can become excellent as long as you don't quit, as long as you don't give up. So, here's how you change your life and change your future. Ask yourself, of all the skills that I need to be successful, what one skill would help me the most? What one skill, if I did it in an excellent way, would help me the most to get into the top 10%? What one skill, if you developed and did it, would help you to double your income more than any other skill? And whatever that is, write it down as a goal and set a deadline to become excellent in that area. And make a list of all the things that you could do to achieve the goal, and then organize the list into a plan, and then take action on your plan, and then do something every day until you become excellent in that area. Remember, nobody's better than you, nobody's smarter than you. If somebody else is excellent in that area, you can become excellent in that area as well. Now let me tell you two things that are very important. Can anybody here drive a car, by the way? Can you ride a bicycle? Can you use a computer or a cell phone? Okay. If you can do any of those things, you can learn any business skill. Business skills are not like athletics, where you have to have special ability, or music, where you have to have special talent. Business skills are learnable skills. All business skills are learnable by anyone. Anyone can learn to ride a bicycle. Anyone can learn to drive a car. Anyone can learn any business skill. All business skills are learnable. And nobody's better than you, and nobody's smarter than you. Now here is the second point. You could be only one skill away from doubling your income. You could be only one skill away from doubling your income. And you probably know what that skill is. You probably know what it is. So, ask yourself this question: what one skill, if I was really good at it, would help me the most to double my income? Now, since we're all entrepreneurs, that means we are all in the business of sales. We are all in sales every day. We sell ourselves. We sell our ideas. We try to influence other people. Anybody who says that I'm not in sales just does not understand. Everyone is in sales. How many people here have children? Have you ever tried to make your children go to bed at night? Yes. Does that require sales? That requires tremendous persuasion skills to get your children to go to bed. Anyway, I have 4 children of my own, so I know. So there are 7 parts of the sales process. These 7 parts largely determine everything that happens to you in life. So give yourself a grade of 1 to 10 on the 7 key result areas of selling. Number 1 is prospecting. If you're in sales and you talk to a lot of people, if you try more things and you're good at prospecting, you're going to be a big success, because the probabilities are that you're going to make a lot of sales, you're going to recruit a lot of people, you're going to have a successful business. So that's number 1. Give yourself a grade of 1 to 10. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. 10 means that you're absolutely excellent at prospecting, and one means that you have a lot of work to do. Number 2 is establishing friendship and trust with other people. Remember, people are emotional. People will only listen to you if they like you and they feel positive towards you. And the more you like yourself, the more other people will like you. So give yourself a scale of 1 to 10. Do you have the kind of personality where you like everybody you meet and everybody likes you? Number 3 is identifying their needs by asking them questions and finding out what it is they want to accomplish with their life. What is it that they really want? What are their goals? What are their hopes and dreams with regard to what you sell? Once you're clear about what it is they need, it's much easier for you to show them your product or service. Number 4 is presenting. And this is where most sales are made, is when you make the presentation. When you show the person that what you are offering them will satisfy their needs better than anything else that they could look at. So all of good selling is to find out what people need and show them that your product or service will help them to get it. Number 5 is answering questions or objections. Every prospective customer has objections, and you have to learn how to answer those objections. So give yourself a scale of 1 to 10. At a 10, you are very good at answering questions. With a 1, you're not very good at all. Number 6 is closing the sale or getting people to take action. Many people think that if all they do is have a conversation with another person about the business, that's the same as selling. No, you are only selling when you can get the other person to make a commitment to take action. Remember, the commitment to action is the aim of all your activities. That is your goal, is to get other people to take action. And finally, number 7 is to give that person good service and good support so they not only buy more of your product, but they recommend other people to the business. They recommend other people to your product or service. So on a scale of 1 to 10, give yourself a grade and ask yourself, what is your weakest skill? Because this is what we've learned, is your weakest key skill sets the height of your income. Your weakest key skill in your business determines how much you earn. Let me ask you a quick question. If a group of children are going for a walk, which child sets the speed of the entire group of children? Well, the answer is it's always the slowest child. The whole group has to slow down for the slowest child. In your career, your weakest skill is your slowest child. Your weakest skill sets the speed at which you achieve all your other goals. So what you do is you say, the one skill that will help me the most is my weakest skill. Because if I bring that skill up, it'll help me to speed up toward my goal more than anything else. Now, if you start off and you identify your weakest skill and you work on it for a week or a month or a year, eventually you will master that skill. Then, what do? What is your next step? Well, your next step is you now say, what is my weakest skill? And you go to work on that skill. And for the rest of your career, you dedicate yourself to improving in one key area at a time. And it's always the one area that will help you more than any other area. For the rest of your life, you keep bringing up your weakest skill. And that will move you ahead faster in your life than any other strategy that you can use. In our society, success only comes from being excellent at doing the most important parts of your job. And you could be one skill away from doubling your income. The final orientation is action orientation. As I said at the beginning, and I said it in the middle, and I'll now say it at the end, the most important orientation of all is action orientation. You see, the more action you take, the more energy you have. The more action you take, the more experience you get. The more experience you get, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get. The better you get, the better results you get from every action. So soon, you get onto an upward spiral in life. You try more things, you persist longer, you keep going, you never give up, you keep working toward goals, and your life starts going faster and faster and faster. Let me just finish up by saying this. Right at the beginning is that South Korea is now entering into the greatest time in all of human history. There are more opportunities and possibilities for you now and tomorrow and next year than have ever existed in all of history. Everybody in this room can become financially independent if they really want to. If you set it as a goal and you make a plan and you work on it every day and you never give up. Thank you very much.